is Terry Bradshaw, quarterback, Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's 7:15. There's a new home run champion of all time, and it's Henry Aaron.
This is baseball, Major League Baseball. And this is
ABC's Monday Night Baseball, live from Fenway Park in Boston, Massachusetts.
Looking. He's under the gun. He's flat. He throws. It is.
September 15th, 1975, Don King on the cover of Sports Illustrated, flanked by Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier on the Past Our Prime podcast. That means one thing. We're talking with Kirkpatrick about tennis. That's right, everyone. Welcome to the 9/15/25 episode of Pop. Bill Mahoney and Mark Hoffman here with me, Scott Johnston. And Bill, we're having Curry back again, one of our faves. And tell me, what number is this for Curry on Past Our Prime?
This is number 5 for Curry. He started back with us in 2024, our 9th episode. He was also in our 28th episode, each time talking about Jimmy Connors, and the second one talking about Chris Evert as well. And this year he's been on episode 56 to talk about Cheryl Teagues. That was a fun one. Remember, he told her how awesome she was. She hates his guts. And then there's episode 83, which was supposed to be Tim Shaw. We couldn't get him, so we got Curry to talk about Over the Line, which actually was a lot more interesting than I ever thought it would be. And this now in episode 88, today's episode, he's talking about Chris Evert winning and Manual Orantes winning the U.S. Open.
Yeah, he was he covered tennis and college basketball for SI back in the day, and apparently Over the Line as well. He's definitely our tennis guy, and he's just a great little guest. He
knows how to tell a story.
Say again?
He just knows how to tell a story.
Yeah.
You know, he can get into it, and he's more honest than you would expect someone to be when he talks about all the people that he's interviewed and spoken with.
Yeah, he's at that I don't give a F age.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true.
And for being on for the 5th time, Billy, he's like Tom Hanks or Alec Baldwin for Saturday Night Live.
I know we actually sent him a nice little towel that said, Curry Kirkpatrick, established in his birthday, and then said he's in the fifth timer club, which is a lot different than the Mile High Club, but still there.
And Mark, the reason we're having Curry on, Bill mentioned that the first couple times he came on, he was to talk about Jimmy Connors back when he was dominating in 1974. But this time we're having him on to talk about
great finals match that between him and Manual, and how do you pronounce that?
Orantes.
And, you've got the Connors, the champion, who's coming off a devastating or a surprising loss at Wimbledon that year. And now he's going to the U.S. Open as the heavy, heavy favorite. Yep. But once again, that upset bug is going to find Jimmy.
Yep. Yeah, we've talked a lot about Jimmy from back in 74 and 75. It was always big news when he lost. Didn't happen much back in the day. Didn't happen much this year. He was 82-8. But he just happened to lose when it mattered most. So more on that in a bit. But first, let's get off and started with the scorecard. Bill.
Okay, I'm going to go with Brian Oldfield. We did his issue came out about a week or so ago, but he's back in the news in the scorecard. It's because the Mr. Shot Putter, he took part in the 110th Scottish Gathering and Games in Santa Rosa, California. It's an interesting one. He said Oldfield had a taste of the Scottish competition earlier this summer in the SI on September 1st, and he dominated the strongman competition, winning such things as the 17-pound stone put, the 28-pound weight throw for distance, the 56-pound weight throw for height. His toss cleared 15 feet 6 inches. Oh my gosh. And something called the Scottish hammer throw. The hammer looks like a standard track hammer. It's just a ball on a wire. Now, he said he was going to be the champion. There was no question about it. Unfortunately, he went down to defeat in tossing the caber. We all know what the caber is. It's basically a classic Scottish event. The caber is a sort of telephone pole, and the manner in which it is tossed is as important as the distance. You want the telephone pole to flip so it lands straight up on its other end. John Ross was the only guy that was able to do it straight up, and he did it twice. And so he took home the title. Oldfield went out and partied.
Oh,
I thought you originally said caper. I'm thinking that doesn't take much to throw a
No, it's a caber. Caper.
Oh,
Caper, you're right. A little caper on the little
a caper where you could flick it with your finger.
You could. No, this is called a caper or a
Uh,
cape. Now you got me saying it. It's a caper. Basically, you're throwing a telephone pole.
yeah.
God knows where they come up with these things.
so could you also call that a pole vault?
Very good, especially if you jumped over it
Yeah.
after you threw it.
Or you're throwing it, so it's kind of bolting in the
It's
air.
vaulting. Very good. Very
Yeah.
good. I think we should complain and have this article taken out of all issues of Sports Illustrated.
I think you're right.
I'm done.
I got one.
Uh-huh.
One graphic difference between college and pro football was made clear the other day by Roosevelt Leaks, the University of Texas star, now a rookie running back with the Colts. We've worked every day for 7 weeks, Leaks said with some awe. In college, that would put us at about mid-season, but we haven't even played a game yet. I'm still a rookie, but I'll probably feel like a second-year man by the time the season starts. In college, I used to get tired of football toward the end of the season. Up here, I guess I'll just have to get tireder. One game he must have been tiredest was in 1973 when he rushed for 342 yards in one game. The record for one game now is held by Samaje Perine, 427 yards for the Sooners he rushed for against Kansas 11 years ago. So Roosevelt Leaks, one of the better college running backs, a lot like Archie Griffin, had a great college career. Yeah, I think he suffered a big injury at one point and was never quite the same in the NFL.
Can you name the two teams that Leaks played for in the NFL?
Colts.
Well, obviously that one, right?
And
Who did he
he
finish?
was a blocking back, I want to say, for OJ.
Yeah, for the Bills.
For the
88
Bills. Maybe not OJ. Might have been after OJ.
for OJ. But he rushed for only 2,400 yards in his career. He did have 28 touchdowns. But yeah, I mean, he was a Heisman favorite in the 74 season. And then
Right.
he had that serious injury in spring drills. He leaped in the air and another man's helmet hit his knee.
Oh,
He needed surgery and he was given the option to take a redshirt year. He chose to play but missed the first game and was hobbled all season.
Wow.
And Earl Campbell, the freshman, was given the majority of
if
carries.
he would have taken that year and redshirted, would his career been different or would have been more successful?
Maybe.
You
But
know?
it's really funny that Earl Campbell was the freshman who got to play because he was a hard.
Right.
Earl Campbell did all right.
And he had a pretty good
He sure
NFL
did.
career.
He sure did.
He was a monster.
Was it Isaiah Robertson liked him?
Yeah. Mark, you got something from the scorecard?
Yeah, well, this is talking about seeing red on the green, and they give a couple stories. My favorite one is the first story, where it's just talking about in Silver Spring, Maryland, there's a foursome who drove another on the second hole at this Northwest Park, and they had a disagreement, I guess, as to, what was happening. So I guess it got to, I don't know, a little physical because one player went to the hospital with a fractured skull and two others had wounds that required medical attention. So if anyone tells you that golf is not a contact sport, you're wrong.
Yeah, this is like what is it? Happy Gilmore? Is Happy Gilmore the golfing?
Yeah.
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 So I guess there were two sets of foursomes, and one foursome, you're supposed to wait for the other ones. And they drove a shot maybe into the hole that the other foursome was playing. And then they started talking and jabbering. And it's like those YouTube videos or Facebook videos or whatever social media you use where you see people fighting, and people just love to watch videos of people beating the crap out of each other.
Well, Bob Barker beat the crap out of Happy Gilmore.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Bitch.
Come on
Well,
down.
you don't want to mess
Exactly.
with the Barker.
He really put him down too. You know,
They said it, Mark.
Well, I've got it. So Utah football has been pretty good for a long time, but not back in 1974. The team went 1-10 in 74. So starting the 1975 season, their head coach, a guy by the name of Tom Levat, he said, "Last night I sat down and tried to think about all the highlights from last year, and I fell asleep." So
Well, Utah's 2-0 this year. I know they beat Cal Poly this past
yeah. Who they
weekend.
beat their first game? I forgot.
well, I think the Cal Poly was a tougher game. No,
They're just warming up. Well,
I mean,
your quarterback's just going to go, I'm going to leave a U2.
right? I think the good thing is you said UCLA's not looking good this year, and that statement is evergreen. We could run that last year. We could run it
Yes.
next year. It could
Yes.
go. It could go.
but again, we're talking 2025. This show's about 1975.
Yep. Billy, Bob Gibson, what did he have to
Uh,
say?
Well, Bob Gibson sometimes doesn't, sometimes he seems a little crabby. Well, he says he's talking about autograph hounds. Sometimes I sign autographs, sometimes I don't. Personally, I think anyone who saves autographs is crazy, as his autograph now would be worth about $1,000.
It's so funny. I can remember, as a kid, I would get autographs at the baseball games over and over again. I would get someone's autograph on Tuesday, and then I'd go back on Wednesday and get it again, and I'd go back. I mean, I had times when players would look at me and be like, "Dude, how many times am I going to get Mitchell Page's autograph?" But it was so fun, and I remember my dad telling me how Bill Russell never signed autographs, never. He just did not believe in it. And I remember as a kid just thinking, "Wow, that would be great to get his autograph."
And he was a decent
Yeah.
shortstop too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you could get his autograph.
Yeah, that's the basketball player. Oh, okay, yeah, now
I wonder what Gibson would have thought if he went to one of those card shows.
that's he'd be doing them nowadays, Mark. It'd
Probably.
be
Someone said, "You know how much money you can make for doing this?"
yes, he'd
You're
be
like,
right
"Oh,
there
you
on
know what?
the.
I like them. They're not crazy."
Did
Yeah.
you ever get Bill Russell's autograph, Scott?
No.
Oh,
The
okay.
Dodgers, Bill Russell, maybe.
Well, you never know. You might have been able to go down to the.
I told you I got Reggie Jackson's autograph on his rookie baseball card, and he spelled Reggie with one G.
Hmm.
Really?
Pretty much made that worthless.
Well, nowadays you never know on that. You should check that.
Well, there's no way to
No, you're right. You're right. You
to
don't have
validate that it's
verification. Yeah, you
him
have no
signing.
verification on it. Yeah, you're right. They
Yeah.
wouldn't take it. I'd burn it.
Like we mentioned at the top, the U.S. Open in 1975 was played on clay, and that didn't bode well for U.S. players. The experts said no one, including the best player in the world, Jimmy Connors, would reach, none of the U.S. players would reach even the quarterfinals. Well, they were half right. The Americans did not fare very well, except for Jimbo, who made it to the quarters and the semis and the finals. But that's where the third seeded Manuel Orantes was. And despite nobody thinking that he had a chance to beat Connors, he had more than just a chance. He whooped him. 6-4, 6-3, 6-3, his first and only major win of his career. But Mark, he wins the whole thing, but he almost loses in the semis before staging one of the most incredible comebacks that I've ever read about.
Yeah, so in the semifinals, he's meeting Guillermo Villas. And that starts off with Orantes losing the first set 4-6, the second set 1-6, and the first two games of the third set. So he's on the verge of getting swept. And then it all changes. He wins the next 6 games to take the third set. In the fourth set, he faces match point 5 times, but he wins that 7-5, and then he takes the fifth set 6-4. So this is a guy who went from the verge of being swept, having won just 5 games and lost 14 in the first 2+ sets to come around and turn the whole thing around and winning. It took 5 hours for that match to be played. So it was even more amazing, not only that he won, but that he had the stamina then to go up against Connors and beat him.
Wasn't
But
it the
again,
next day too, Mark?
that's a good.
Connors
I
the
don't.
next?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that
well,
match
yeah,
It was
because
the
I
next
don't think
day.
he got back. Yeah, I think it was the next day
Yeah.
because I don't think he got back. Oh, yeah, I think so. He has this 5 set, 4 hours. So it's more like a 4 hour semifinal. He doesn't get back to his hotel until 2 a.m. And then he has to call a plumber because his bathtub is flooding. So, I mean, you would think, Connors would win this going away, and maybe it's the clay. I mean, I
Yeah.
I never realized that they ever played the U.S. Open on anything but a hard surface, that they
Yeah.
actually played
Yeah.
it
I
on
didn't either.
clay,
Only,
like the
only
French.
this was the first year they played on clay, and I think it was just 3 years before they then went to the hard surface. But
Mhm.
yeah, and Billy,
Hmm?
so Orantes wins on the men's side. What about on the women's side of things? No shocker here.
No, Everett took down Yvonne Goolagong in 3 sets. It was her fourth career Grand Slam and her first U.S. Open title. She would go on to win 5 more. But it was sort of a foregone conclusion because Everett, over the past 2 years, had won 78 straight matches in 16 tournaments on clay surfaces. So she came in with quite an advantage, and it's hard to believe she was just 20 years old at that time.
Right.
So they said that there was a little bit, she threw a racket in the air after she won and did a little bit of crying. Just the start of an amazing career for Chris Everett.
Yeah, I mean, Everett's 20 and Connors is just 23 during the tournament.
Exactly.
These are the young faces of tennis in the United States.
But Connors seemed older because maybe he
Right.
wasn't as friendly, where Everett always came off, she looked younger and just came off really sweet. So
Mhm.
you looked at her with a little bit more like, oh, she's just young.
Right.
Yep, she was quite a player, no question about that. And it's so weird to think how the US men weren't contenders because of it being on clay, and yet
Yeah, that's a good
she
point.
is dominant on clay.
Yep.
And she won
Yep.
how many French Opens? She was the Rafael Nadal of the French Open by the women. She won like 7 French Opens. She's just a clay court. Not, I wouldn't say specialist because she can win on any surface, but she was great on clay.
But she had, if you just look at her career, she would win at least one major from 1974 to 1986, at least one. That alone is unbelievably impressive. That doesn't always happen.
Is interesting as I'm looking too at the players, and for instance, Vias, Borg, and Orantes are all using a wooden racket, but it looks like Connors is one of the first ones to go to the metal rackets,
Hmm.
Hmm.
which became commonplace
Yeah,
and
what an
stuff.
advantage. Yep.
And I was reading that they sort of bring it to nowadays that Borg's been battling cancer. I didn't know that.
Ooh,
I
Yeah.
didn't hear.
They say he's clear. They say he's cleared now, but I think it was prostate. Said it was
oh
pretty
wow.
bad there for a while.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest killers of men is
Yeah.
prostate cancer.
Yikes. Way to bring us down. Thanks,
Yeah,
Billy.
I just thought about that. I'm pulling a Mark.
Good Lord. Joining us now to talk more about the finals of the 75 U.S. Open is Sports Illustrated's college basketball and tennis reporter from back in the day, Kirkpatrick. We just can't get enough of you, Mr. Kirkpatrick. Thank you again for coming back on.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure.
We just spent a good part of the summer talking about the huge upset at Wimbledon when Arthur Ashe disposed of the world's top-ranked player, Jimmy Connors, and now the finals of the U.S. Open, and Jimmy loses to Manuel Orantes. Once again, a good player, had a nice career on the circuit, but this had to be another huge upset of Connors, no?
It was, it was an epic upset. Not as big as Ashe beating Connors, because Connors, of course, had dominated Arthur up to that Wimbledon victory. But Jimmy was this was 75 was it was the cusp of tennis, of the tennis breakout as to such a popular sport. It was just the beginning of the heydays of Connors and Borg, who were about the same age. McEnroe was a couple of years younger. The women's tournament was Chris Evert and Martina Navratilova and Yvonne Goolagong. And I actually Sports Illustrated had two of us cover that tournament. I actually did the story on the women, so I did the story on Chris, and then a guy named Joe Jars did the story on the men. And Connors was a big favorite. This was the year that the U.S. Open moved off of grass to the Hartrue clay, the green clay, at Forest Hills. And I guess the grass was costing too much money, so they changed the surface. It's the last time, the first time the Open would be played on this clay surface. And then later, of course, it went to hard courts. But it was quite a difference. And Jimmy Connors was favored because of the surface. There were some great matches. You mentioned Orantes beating Connors. Connors fashioned himself as a clay court player, but he really never was. He never won Paris. Of course, he came to the French Open many, many times, and he just got his ass kicked by these these European and South American dirt players who just wore him out. Jimmy's game was based on power and, of course, his great return of service. And they just kept him out there for hours and hours and just wore him down. He got beat at Paris by guys you had never heard of and wouldn't even know now. But I forget who beat him that summer. But so he comes to the Open, and they change it from grass to Hartrue, which really wasn't the soft red clay of Europe and South America. It was this, this foreign surface that was not nearly as soft. And but the clay court players took to it, and of course, it advanced in the tournament. One of the great unremembered classic major tournament matches was played in the semifinals, though, of that tournament when Orantes played Guillermo Vilas in the semifinals. And Jimmy was in the other semifinal. I forget who he beat to get to the final, but I think he might have beaten Dick Stockman. McEnroe had lost early, but Orantes played Vilas. Vilas won the first two sets easily. This thing started in the evening, so you can imagine, because it was such heat in New York that summer. But they started this semifinal. I guess the other semifinal and the women's final went long, and I remember they started as an early evening, and Vilas beat Orantes easily in the first two sets. And in the third set, Orantes came back to win 6-4 in the four sets. So Vilas dominated four sets. He was up 5-love and had 5-love in the fourth set. He was up 2-1. He had 5-love, 3 set points on Orantes' serve in the sixth game. And Orantes magically pulled those 3 set points out and won a couple of games, and then fought off another 2 set points in a Vilas game, and magically won 7 games in a row to win the 4 sets 7-5.
Wow.
I mean, it's just one of the great, and people don't remember this because I think the Connors Orantes match was made such headlines because of the upset. But then Orantes won the fifth set 6-4. He had done about the same thing to Vilas in Paris, having match points against him and saved him, and then beating Vilas in 5 in Paris. So the two had this long running, rivalry. Orantes was a little guy. He was smaller than Connors, and he's left-handed, like Connors. In fact, that tournament, of course, Vilas was left-handed too. So 3 of the main components in the last rounds were left-handed guys. But anyway, so Orantes wins that tournament, as you say, the big upset. And Meanwhile, on the other side was Chris Evert. She practically exploded out of the tennis outbreak. Her timing was so amazing. She was in this tournament. She was 20 years old. She'd been around tennis for 4 years, having exploded at Wimbledon in 16. She'd already won Wimbledon, and she'd won Paris several times, but she had never been even to the finals at the U.S. Open in 1975. So when they switched from grass to clay, of course, clay to this Hartrue, which was, semi-clay, the tournament was practically given to Chris before it started. And sure enough, she just rifled her way through the tournament, beating people love and love and four and, beating really good players. And she got to the semifinals, and Martina was there. And Martina was 2 years younger than Chris. In those days, Chris was dominating her in all surfaces. It wasn't until a few years later that, the rivalry really became a rivalry, because Chris was beating her so much. And but Martina played her a pretty tough match in the semis, as I remember. And then in the final, Chris played another rival of hers, Yvonne Goolagong. You remember, from Australia?
Yep.
Who was just like a dancer on the court. She just glided around the court. She was very popular at the time, and her record against Chris was pretty good in the 4 years that Evert had been on the tour, because I think Chris got a little nervous playing this girl who got everything back and looked like a ballet dancer as well. And I know Chris got nervous against Goolagong much more than against Navratilova in those times. And Goolagong took the first set, 6-4, I remember. And Chris was tentative and finally started hitting out and hitting the ball harder and playing more from the baseline, not coming in, because coming in, she was getting beaten. And she won the second set, a really close set, and then won the third. She dominated the third set, 6-2. And as I say, this tournament was right in 75, as tennis was becoming hugely popular in America as well as around the world, and both on the men's side and the women's. Due to the McEnroe and Connors, I think, rivalry from the American side, and of course Chris and Martina on the women's side. So that's the 75 tournament I remember.
Chris wins the Open here in 75, 76, 77, 78, 80, 82, 6 U.S. Open championships in those 7 years. Hard to say this, but I actually think that Chris Evert is actually somewhat underrated when talking the all-time greats. Am I wrong?
No, I think people forget how good she was. A lot of her, she won the Open, what would you say, 7 times, 6 times? She won Paris about 8 times because of the clay. She's mostly remembered, I think, for the rivalry with Martina. And it was an amazing, I think they played 80-something times, and Martina having like a 2-match lead or something. But I think she's remembered for that. And because Martina was a lot more powerful and a stronger player, I think people sort of consider, Kristen also ran in the rivalry. But of course, she became, they became such great friends in the past 10 years because of their battles with cancer, and they helped each other out and become such great friends. Chris is though, I think she's become more remembered now that she's been doing, the majors for ESPN now several years, and she's pretty good on TV, I think. She's recovered from cancer and looks great. I feel very close to her because I almost I joked that I discovered Chris Evert. We did the first big story on her when she was 16. And I remember a few years later, I think I told you guys this, I got to do a story on the first President Bush doing sports at Kennebunkport. And I spent the weekend with him. And of course, he was a tennis player too. And he wanted to know whether he should play, whether I should be on his side or against him in the doubles match that we were going to play. And he said he called Chris Evert to find out because he was a big friend of hers. And he said, I found out you're okay. And I said, Chris Evert, I said, the President of the United States, I said, I invented Chris Evert. So I used to say that to people. And then when Chris retired, she announced her retirement on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and she did a big story with me in her words about why she was quitting the game. I got to tell you one other funny story about Chris that has to do with her retirement. She was then, she married a British player at one point named John
Boyd.
Of course, she had this great romance with Jimmy Connors prior to that, and they never married. It got broken up, I think, by Jimmy's mother, but that's a whole other story. But and then she met a skier named Andy Mill, who was about as good looking as any guy I have ever met. And the problem was he was even nicer than that. Andy Mill he used to help me on ski stories. And, but anyway, she had her two sons by Andy Mill. And their romance started about the time Chris was starting to lose on the tour. And I remember one summer she was losing to people like 2 and 3 people that she normally beat, with a loss of about 5 games. And I wasn't doing a story, but I was doing something else, and I was out on the tour. And so, and Chris was, losing to these people, and I couldn't believe it. And I asked some of the other girls on the tour, I went, "What's the deal with Chris?" And she said, all she wants to do is go back to the motel and spend time with Andy Mill.
Lose your focus.
And sure enough, they married and had two boys. And so I've been friends with Chris a long time. Have followed her. In fact, the last time I went to Wimbledon was a few years ago, and Chris got me tickets. So that's how I got there. Yeah. But 75, you're right. I didn't realize that was the first time she'd won the Open, and that started her domination there.
On the men's side, it was an opposite story. I mean, we talked already about at Wimbledon what an upset it was for Arthur Ashe to beat Connors. But Connors loses to a guy in the men's final, and this is the only career Grand Slam title this other player won.
Orantes?
Yep, Manual Orantes.
Yeah.
How big of an upset was that?
Well, as I say, because of this hard true surface, the clay court players from Europe and South America did very well at the Open that year. As I said, Vilas went to the semis and should have beaten Orantes, and Vilas, I think, would have beaten Connors in the final as well. Not to mention a couple other European players. I mean, this just wasn't, it was hard true, but it was clay. And, Orantes beat him in straight sets. It wasn't close.
Right.
I think that was a bigger surprise than Orantes just winning. I remember being at the French one year, and I can't remember. I'm sorry, I can't remember for you guys what it was. A European player was ranked about 50, in the 50s, and Connors got him early in the tournament, maybe second or third round. And I was watching the match, and Jimmy went out 2-2-2. He had no idea how to play this guy, and he was so mad, so furious, breaking rackets and stuff in the locker room. And he kept coming back. To give him his credit, he kept coming back to the French and played the clay, I think every year. Unlike, a guy like McEnroe, McEnroe had one chance to win the French. He played Ivan Lendl one year, and I can forget one year, and he had Lendl 2 sets
Yeah.
and match points,
Like
and a
around
couple
80,
match points in the
80,
third.
85, I want to say.
Yeah, and it was during the period where he couldn't beat Lendl.
Right.
And he didn't beat him that day either, even though he had 2 sets and a couple match points. And that was in the French final, and that was his only chance to win. He never did win the French. And he stopped coming. He said, "Yeah, I can't play. I can't do this. I can't win on this stuff." And a lot of Americans, I think they come to Paris now just for the enjoyment of the place, because not many of them have a chance on the clay.
Was 1975, was that the start of the golden age of tennis? Because you had so many characters, Everett and Connors, and then McEnroe's about to come, and Borg, and I mean, just the list never stops.
Yeah, well, that's what I say, and it was great for American tennis because we had players right in the midst of you just mentioned McEnroe and Connors, and then we had Chris and Martina was might as well have been American. The day after she lost that semi to Chris, she was seeking political asylum and became American. So that's what I was trying to say. Golden age is probably a great term.
I was just noticing in men's doubles, Jimmy Connors and Ilie Nastase won, and I'm thinking, could you ever find 2 more guys that are more intimidating for an opposing, for just their mood, their manner?
Well, and Nastase taught McEnroe and Connors all their bad stuff. Everything they did, they learned from Nastase. Screaming at umpires, screaming at lines persons, getting in fights. Yeah, Nastase. I did a huge story on Nastase when he first came to the fore, and what a great character he was.
And this is a special one tailored not for tennis, but for you, Curry, specifically for you, because you are the first 5-time guest on the show. Is that not correct? Our first person has appeared 5 times on the show.
That is right.
And because of honor of that, I have a trivia question from you about the 5-Timers Club on Saturday Night Live, which is a very prestigious thing. They give them the jacket and everything like that.
Sure.
So
do I get a jacket from you guys?
Yes, Mark's
We're
getting you a
compared to
jacket.
Saturday Night Live.
I'll get you a bathrobe. Here's your trivia question, okay? There have been a lot of 5-timers. True or false, Steve Martin holds the record for the most hosting of the show?
No, I should know this because I watch it every week, and I see every time one of those timers comes on, they come on and they talk about how many times they've been on. Martin, I think Martin was on this year, and they joked about it. God, true or false? Are you saying true or false? He's the leader.
Yes, he's hosted the most Saturday Night Live shows.
How many?
He's hosted 16. Oh. He's also been a special guest on 23 others.
Oh my God! But the question is he the leader? Is he the most
hosted?
The lead?
Yes, lead host. Yes.
16. I'm going to say yes.
No, he is second. It's a tough question. Can you guess who the first one is with 17? And not only did he host it 17 times, he appeared 52 times in the show as a special guest, playing a special character.
This one.
Wow.
I know this one.
I'm going to say, what's his name now? I can't remember his name. The guy that did Trump. The guy that did Trump that was involved in the shooting in that movie set recently.
Yep. What's his name?
Oh God, he's the brother of He's the brother. He's the
His
brother
initials
of,
are AB. AB. AB are his initials.
Kim Basic,
um,
his ex-wife.
I can't believe I can't remember this guy.
He has
Yeah,
no
well, I'm
hair.
glad
He has no hair. He is.
he has no hair.
No, he has hair.
He is what?
No, he has hair.
Oh,
I
I
know.
get you. I get you. It's a play on his last
Alec
name.
Baldwin.
There you
Alec
go.
Baldwin.
go.
Alec Baldwin.
17 hosts,
that was
52.
that when I took so much time to answer yes or no about Steve Martin, that's the guy I was thinking of that he was the leader. So yeah.
Yep. It's Alec Baldwin, followed by Steve Martin, John Goodman at 13, Tom Hanks, and Buck Henry at 10. I don't know how many of you remember
Well,
Buck Henry.
I think you should start a new tradition and send me those guys get velvet robes.
I know.
I think I need a velvet robe from. I think
Yeah,
I need a velvet robe.
we need to get something with a 5 on it for you.
Exactly. Who's second? Who's second to me? Who's second?
Oh, boy.
Bob Ryan.
All right.
Yes.
And then Barry Bonds. I mean, obviously.
No.
Well, Bob, aren't you mostly Sports Illustrated?
Yep.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
Bob Ryan never worked for Sports Illustrated, did he?
No. But it's not necessarily just Sports Illustrated people. So we've had him on to talk about who was on the cover of Sports Illustrated.
I got
I
got it.
Yeah, when the Celtics, mainly the Celtics, who were pretty good back then.
We had Larry Farmer
I
on
got
the show twice. That's another double
Yep.
person we've had on. I'm trying to think of who else we've had on twice.
Larry Farmer, you've had on twice.
Yes.
Yep.
Talk about the 88
right.
winning streak getting snapped.
All right,
And about John Wooden.
All right, here's the next time you have Larry Farmer on, give him a trivia question.
Okay.
Who was his music teacher at Laney Junior High School in Denver?
Oh God, I want to say I know this. Who was it? Okay.
I married her.
Oh no! Oh my God!
My former wife was Larry Farmer's music teacher in junior high in Denver.
Oh, wow.
Mary Ann Brannigan. Not too Irish, right?
Right,
All
exactly.
right, we'll have to ask him about that.
Here's another great. I know when you talked to Larry Farmer, you talked about Sam Gilbert, right?
Yep.
My wife and I and our 5-month-old baby were in Europe, traveling around, and we were in France, staying at the Adidas Hotel. In fact, you know who got us in there? Remember Bill Sweet, that played guard at UCLA?
Yep.
Bill Sweet. He became a friend of mine, and he worked for Adidas in Europe. And so we were staying in the hotel. We were out at this, and we went to a restaurant, and it turned out Sam Gilbert and Larry Farmer were at the restaurant. And so Larry and my wife, who, she taught him, and it was a great reunion. Well, so Larry and Sam Gilbert had a car, and we had gone to the restaurant in a taxi. So they gave us a ride back, our ride back to the Adidas Hotel from the restaurant in the outer wastelands of France. And Sam Gilbert, driving, had some alcohol. He turned over the car on the side of the road.
Oh my God.
And we miraculously had, it's a true story. And we miraculously had nobody hurt, including my baby, who fell into my arms as we tipped. The car only tipped halfway. And none of us were injured. That was amazing. And we walked to a farmhouse, and that's how we got saved. That's a true story.
Oh my goodness.
Sam Gilbert and Larry Farmer, and my wife and I and our baby.
That would be every newspaper or every internet site if that happened today.
Exactly. Yeah.
But can I ask you a little bit? I know you didn't cover the Orantes match back in '75, but I just remember looking at it, and Connor started that match against Orantes up 2-0.
Yeah.
but he only won 8 the rest of the way. Can you say,
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
remember, what did Orantes do to take down Connors? I'm not saying easily, but he dominated the rest of that match.
I was trying to get this point across earlier. It wasn't just a really good clay court player who Orantes was. It was other clay court players who took apart Jimmy Connors in Paris. I'm telling you, every time he got to France, he would lose in the third, fourth, he would lose to nobodies, just European guys who you would never heard of. And here's what they did. They just got his serve back, which he wasn't a big serve, especially on clay. And they just kept the ball in play. And Jimmy loved to rush, he loved to rush the net. And he always would, he overhit constantly against these guys. And I'm sure, I don't remember specifically Orantes, but it was in the story that Joe Jars wrote, that Jimmy constantly against Orantes would just overhit the ball. He just hit him and he started spraying stuff. And then he'd get upset, and he just didn't have the patience to play on clay. These guys, these Europeans and South Americans just had the patience to stay out there and just wear him down. And that's what they did. He lost tons of matches, straight sets in Paris, I'm telling you. And then he lost that Open in straights.
And now we go back to the girl you do know, because you did write the story, obviously, on Evert. She was amazing on clay. I think they said that she had won 78 straight matches prior to coming in on clay surfaces.
Yeah.
What made her so good on that surface? What made her so
I wrote
good?
that. Well, again, she just stayed in the backcourt and got everything back. And she had great timing. She wasn't the fastest player in the world, and wasn't athletic like some of these girls today are such athletes. Chris was not athletic like that. She just had this great timing and got the ball. I had one quote in there. I think one of the girls said, "She gets to the ball before I even hit it. She knows where it's going to go before I even hit it." She just, her timing and her patience, and she just played from the backcourt. She never came to net, and she just won that way. Now she got on the surfaces, the hard court surfaces. And, against Navratilova, she couldn't get away with that. Mm-hmm. And I think her record at Wimbledon against Martina, I'm sure is not 500 either. But on the clay, boy, she was dominating.
Jimmy in 74, Curry, he wins all 3 majors that he entered. But in 75, he loses to John Newcombe in the finals of the Australian Open, Ashe in the finals of Wimbledon, and Orantes in the finals of the U.S. Open. And look, I'm not going to downplay it. From that point on, he still has a phenomenal career. But is it also fair to say that he never reached his 1974 status again? Maybe because Borg and McEnroe and there were new young guys that came along, but his days of being the dominant player kind of ended at that point, did it not?
He won several Opens after 75.
Yes, he did. He did.
But what you're saying, he wasn't the dominant player that he was in the mid 70s.
Yeah, I'm saying that.
I think you're right. Well,
from that point on, Borg, those losses were no longer like huge upsets anymore. The game kind of caught up to him at that point.
Yeah, and Borg had come along, so they weren't going to beat Borg on grass or clay. I think he beat Borg at the Open maybe 1 or 2 times. I'm not sure, because Borg never won our Open. It's right. Very strange how these guys, of course, Borg stopped playing at 25, but Connors, I think you're right that these younger guys had come along, and even some of the American players like Stockton, Dick Stockton, and there were a couple others were, came up and could beat him in the majors. So, but he still had, a tremendous Hall of Fame career.
Absolutely.
And of course he had that great U.S. Open when he was almost 40 years old and got to the semis. You remember that? And he was just He got to the semis at the U.S. Open that year, and I did the story, and I don't even remember who won the thing because we put Jimmy Connors, who lost in the semifinals, we put him on the cover of the U.S. Open issue that year. That's how phenomenal that comeback was. I mean, he just tore apart 3 or 4 guys at the Open and got the American crowds going. It became a huge story.
Yeah, he beat Patrick McEnroe in a crazy late night
in a match that Patrick McEnroe had like 3 or 4 match points on it.
Points. Yep. And then I think he was down 2 sets to Paul Harhus. And that was maybe one of the greatest tennis points of all time in that match.
Yeah, I was there. I was there for that. I was there for all that stuff.
I gotta say, there are certain moments when you cover sports your whole life that even, like the press area kind of goes, wow, did you see that? Did you know at that point that you were seeing something unbelievable?
Oh, yeah. Oh, of course, because of his age. How old was he? 38 or something?
38, 39.
I mean, and he hadn't been in big matches for several years, hadn't been in big tournament, hadn't done anything. So it was kind of it wasn't just a comeback. It was a comeback from, several years past. And, it was stunning. And I kept rooting for him to win. Of course, he got in the semis and lost. And I remember Frank DeFord was editing the magazine that week, who was another tennis guy. And I said, Frank, you got to think about putting Jimmy on a cover because that's all I'm going to write about. I mean, it's all, forget if he wins or loses now. It's too big a story. And we did. So, I mean, just think of that. A loser in a major, and we put him on the cover. Right. I forget who won. Did Lendl win the tournament? Somebody like that, I'm sure, won.
Was that 91? It was 91, right? Yeah, I think I want to say Edberg won.
Who?
I want to say Stefan Edberg won, but I'm not positive.
Oh, yeah, it could have been somebody like that. Yeah, it was somebody that was of no interest.
Yeah, but someone very vanilla. Yep.
Everybody but their family.
To American audiences, and I'm sure Edberg, if that's who did win, was pissed that that a guy that lost in the semis made the cover and he didn't.
Hey, Curry, make sure you get your bathrobe size to Bill so we can get that 5-time robe off to you. Always a pleasure talking to you about tennis, college hoops, drunken softball players, you name it. Thank you, my friend.
Curry, you're the best, bud.
Okay, take care.
Take care, my friend.
Thanks again.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you so much.
Tom Swift and his Sky Machine. I have no idea what the hell that means in terms of Tom Seaver, but he says September is the best month for baseball if, and it's an important if there is a pennant race. And right now there is only one race back in 75 in the bigs, and it's the NL East. Seaver's Mets are looking for a little Mets magic like they had in 69 and 73. They are 5 back of the Pirates, but in 4th place in the NL East, led by a rejuvenated Dave Kingman of the Mets.
Yeah, Dave Kingman is to me an interesting guy because you really never knew him. He never really talked to the media, but he did have something interesting going on back in those years. He was traded on June 15th. I think it was 19. I'm sorry about my date. I don't have it. It was 19. It was one of the years of his career. He was traded in June 15th. Mets traded the Kingman to the Padres. A few months later, the Padres released Kingman. The Angels got him. Then the Angels, a few days later, traded him to the Yankees. Kingman is the first player to ever wear 4 uniforms in 4 divisions in the same year. And he's only the 11th player ever to be traded or to play with 4 teams in a year. And the thing is, here's where the talent part comes in, because Kingman didn't do anything with the Angels and Yankees, but in the offseason he signed with the Cubs, and over the next 3 years had more than 200 RBI. And then the final 3 years of his career were in Oakland, and he had 100 home runs and 303 RBIs. And in 1984, his last year was 35, 118, never played another game, never played another season.
I remember him playing with the A's and him being able to,
Yeah.
hit some bombs. And yeah, it wasn't like we're so used to guys, their last year they hit 212, like Hank Aaron's
Yes.
going out with a
Yes.
whimper. But that was not the case with Kingman. I mean, he was a strikeout home run kind of guy back then, which wasn't valued the way it is now.
Yeah.
But
But
you're right. He had a productive last couple seasons, and no one wanted him around anymore.
But
But by the way, the year you're referring to is 1977.
thank you, Mark.
where
I
you-
was just looking that up right now. Thank you.
Mets, Padres, Angels, and Yankees. But
Yes.
again, going to the Cubs in 78, it's the old change of scenery thing.
That's
When you
right.
look- But the other interesting thing about Kingman, when he was at USC, he began as a pitcher and they converted
You're
him to
right.
an outfielder. But in 1969, get this, when he was a pitcher at USC, he had an 11-4 record with a 1.38
Jeez.
earned run average. So he was a damn good pitcher.
He was. He was also drafted 3 times, twice in the first round by the Orioles and Angels. And then eventually, I think the other time he was drafted, then he was drafted the first overall pick, when he actually did come out. Yeah, Dave King was just an interesting guy. And I always just looked at him as an all or nothing guy.
Right.
And mind you, he'd be a superstar in today's day and age. But back in the day, I just thought, oh, he hits home runs and hits, 220.
Well, he's passed the 30 home run mark here in 1975, the first Mets player to do that since Frank Thomas, not the Big Hurt, but a different Frank Thomas, did it in their expansion season of 1962. So Mets have not had a lot of power hitters thus far in their franchise history, but Kingman's hitting him out. By the end of the week, the Pirates were starting to take control. They're 5.5 games up on the Cards, 7 on the Phils, 7.5 up on the Mets. But as Yogi Berra once said, you can't be out of it until you're in it.
That is true. Only Yogi could say that.
Next up, there ain't no others like me. Now to the cover story, and it is back to the heavyweights. Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier flanking a relative unknown at the time guy by the name of Don King, but that is changing. The promoter, manager, deal maker is dealing with the likes of people like Baby Doc Duvalier of Haiti and the president of Zaire, Mobutu Sese Seko, which is where the last big Ali fight took place, the Rumble in the Jungle against George Foreman. That's because King doesn't deal with private entities. He deals with governments. The fight between Ali and Frazier that's about to come up, which I think you could argue is maybe the most famous fight in the history of the sport, will be in the Philippines, the Thrilla in Manila. So King says, I don't care about politics. Just call me a promoter, not the first black one, not the first green one, but the promoter, Jack. There ain't no others because they've only had 3 in the history of the world. P.T. Barnum, Mike Todd, and you are looking at the third. Nobody can deny it. They mock me at their peril. Of course, that begs the question, and I had to ask this, who the heck is Mike Todd? Mark?
Well, Mike Todd was a producer and innovator in the movie business. He created in the 50s, the widescreen, the cineramic effect, where movies were shot in this way, I think, because television was coming up. And all of a sudden, television was beginning to steal movie audiences. So they had to do a gimmick to get people to come out to go to the movies. And that's these wider screens, big epic motion pictures, and using like something you can't see on a TV screen at home. So he was a great innovator. And the other thing, he was the third husband of Elizabeth Taylor. And it was also his third marriage. But I think it was the one true match, and it would have worked out. But he died in a plane crash, only 50 years old. And it's the only person that Elizabeth Taylor didn't divorce. This is before she ever married Richard Burton, like the 3 times she married him. So like Mike Todd might have been, or Michael Todd might have been the love of her life, but tragically, passed away at a young age. But an innovator as a producer in the movie business.
There you go, people. I mean, you're just learning things left and right here, right? I mean, we just throw out history. It's a history lesson with Mark Kaufman. I love
Dave
it.
Kingman
Right?
to
Oh my God.
Mr. Todd.
Right?
Yes.
With oil money from Saudi Arabia, Don King almost bought Madison Square Garden, but passed, saying it was a turkey of a building. He might want to rethink that one, but for the most part, he's making all the right moves. He's making Ali more money than Ali could have ever imagined, and Ali is doing the same for King. They are a match made in heaven if heaven is Fort Knox. So Don King coming on the scene. I'm 7 years old in 1975. When we started getting into boxing, Don King and Bob Arum, the two promoters. I mean, if it was a big fight, Don King was more often than not involved.
And crazy
here's
enough,
my
they had to
two.
work together at what that's in the article. They end up having to work together on these fights, Bob
They,
Arum and Don King.
they did not like each other.
No, but they had to, they were there together.
Yep.
But my two thoughts on Don King. One, the fact he's still alive at 94. That's incredible
Yeah.
because the other thing is he's a big dude. You
Yeah.
know, I saw he came into the studios once, and so I stood next to him. He was, I mean, that is not a man you would want to go to.
He's a big man, isn't he, Mark?
Yeah.
He came to Channel 9 once. I didn't know he was
Yeah.
as solid and tall and big as he was.
Oh yeah. Yeah, let's put it this way. If there was a fight, he'd have to throw one punch, it'd connect, and that'd be it.
Yeah, you get on his side.
Yes.
You talking about if you got into a fight with him, Mark?
That's right.
Mark did get in a fight with him.
Because you know me, I'm a belligerent guy.
Mark, just try and stay calm for once, okay? Jeez.
I lose my cool. Well, that's not true. When I drive, I tend to lose my cool. I get what is it, road rage?
Yes, that's what it's called.
And unfortunately, my daughter has picked a little of that up.
Oh, lovely.
But
Lovely.
she's a much better driver than I am.
That's a nice
And Mark
trait.
used to be the calmest driver around.
Nice trait to
And
pass
back in the
on.
90s, you drive with Mark, you'd go, that's all right. We'll get there.
Yeah.
Now, as you know,
Some running over
Hey.
people. That's right.
you want a piece of me?
King is doing all this despite being in jail just 6 years ago for the killing of a one-time associate. He was brought up on manslaughter charges. He served 4 years in prison. He says they made an example out of him, that he plea bargained down and he thought he would have time served, but he ended up serving 4 years, hard time in prison. He goes into details. It was not pretty. So tough life, but he certainly came out of that on the other end. I think he managed Mike Tyson at one point.
Yep.
And like I said, if it was a heavyweight fight in particular, Don King was involved.
A lot of lawsuits with Tyson and King, though.
Yes. Yes. Millions and millions of dollars.
Yes. Yes.
All you ever wanted in a ballpark and less. This is on Fenway Park. It was a landmark 50 years ago, still is to this day. I'm not one of those to critique the newer ballparks. I think most of them are beautiful, but Fenway just has a little different feel to it, Built in 1912, it isn't perfect, but to me, its imperfections are part of its charm. Capacity in 1975 is 33,379. Now it's 37,755. It was rebuilt in 1934. That was when the Green Monster was erected. The 37-foot wall was painted green 1947. So Fenway Park, right there in the in the middle of the city. As I lived in Boston for 17 years, and it was never, it was almost always, Scott, you're going down to Fenway tonight. I would get so excited. I was like, I can't believe I am covering baseball at Fenway Park. It just has a really great feel to it on a warm summer night. It's the best.
The most distinctive ballpark in baseball, maybe in any sport. What other stadium has that green monster, And then they finally put seats on the top of it, which would be really interesting.
Yeah.
But my greatest memory of Fenway Park is the scene from Field of Dreams, where Kevin Costner and James Earl Jones are at the ballpark, and he's getting the messages, and he sees it on the scoreboard.
Yeah. Great moment. Billy, you and I went to Fenway once.
Yeah, we did. We saw John Lackey almost throw a no-hitter.
We did.
I think Manny Ramirez broke it up, I think.
I want to say that was like the day before Manny got traded to the Dodgers.
It might be. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think you're right. You're
Yeah.
right.
Manny was about to
That was a lot of fun.
lose his
And because
mind.
there's so much to do around that stadium as well.
Yeah. Yep. Mark, let me ask you, you've been to Comerica, right?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, we did.
Would you rather still have Old Tiger Stadium to see if they could have kept that
I
as
would
a
have loved to see a game at Old Tiger Stadium. I never saw a game there. Bill and I drove by it in 2009, and there was the shell of the stadium was still standing at the time, but before they destroyed the whole thing, raised it. But I mean, the neighborhood was really not very good. Co-America is in a much better place. It's right next to the football stadium, and it's easy to get in and out of. But yeah, I would have loved to seen a game at Old Tiger Stadium. In fact, in 19 was it 90, I was covering the NBA Finals between Detroit and Portland. And all Portland had to do was win one game in Portland. The series goes back to Detroit, and I was going to cover the Angels Tigers game that Saturday because the basketball had an off day. But of course, the Blazers lost all three games in Portland, including blowing like a 7 point lead in the last 2 minutes of game five. So I didn't get my chance to go to Tiger Stadium.
I
thanks,
actually
Bob.
got to see a game there in the mid 90s.
Really?
It was amazing. Just I mean, it was just so old school. It was just so amazing to sit. Yeah, we sat in the right behind a little bit up from the dugout, and it was just absolutely fantastic. And I remember when we got there, the guy that was giving us tickets, Mark, saying it's a bad area, the parking guy, he goes, just make sure when the game ends, you just get out of here. We said, what do you mean? He goes, just get out of here. Second the game ends, get in your car and leave.
Don't hang out.
And that was from the parking guy.
Right.
So we did, but it was amazing. Yeah. It's just history. And unfortunately, those are the years you didn't have, like iPhones. Now you could, category, you could get pictures of everything
Right.
now, but back in those days, I don't have any pictures of it, but I did
Well,
go.
it'll just have to be in your memory. NBC tries a grandstand play. A new show on NBC is premiering, and it basically is how every broadcast in America is now 50 years later. It centers around live events, comes on 30 minutes before the game, does the halftime show, and then a post-game show. I mean, that's Dodgers network, that's Yankees network, that's everything now. So the first NBC show will also examine the enormously costly rebuild of Yankee Stadium and the progress of America's most mysterious sports complex, the Hackensack Meadows Project, which we came to know as the Meadowlands. In addition, Tony Kubek will be on hand at the day's hottest baseball game. There will
Ooh.
also be short live feeds from 6 AFC games, all of this in 30 minutes. So it's a 30-minute show that is premiering, and it's the brainchild, Billy, of a guy by the name of
Chet Simmons. I want to also say, unfortunately, it was canceled in 1986. Just a pioneer. At NBC, he pioneered instant replay and the coverage of the Olympics and the NCAA men's basketball Final Four. Then in 1979, he left NBC to join just a small company called ESPN, becoming its second president. And at ESPN, he oversaw the development of SportsCenter, the first broadcasts of the NFL draft, coverage of the early rounds of the NCAA men's basketball Final Four, and the development of Chris Berman, Bob Lee, George Grande, Greg Gumbel, and Dick Vitale. Yeah, Chet Simmons, pretty good.
think of those names.
I mean, just everything he was able to do. What a man with amazing foresight and the ability, obviously, to get things done.
Well, I guess, back in the day, there'd be like they'd be showing, a movie, and the movie would end, and then the next thing you know, it was a Jets Raiders game. There was no lead in, none of the stuff
Yeah,
that we have now, which is pregame
nothing.
upon
Yeah,
pregame, and we take that for granted that is
for
how
8 hours.
it is done. But good for Chet. Two for the Astro Muddle. This is about the Astros and Tal Smith, who left after 13 years with the Astros, but only 2 years later, the former assistant to Judge Roy Hofheinz is now back in Houston as the GM. Hofheinz is the owner of the Astros and the Astrodome, but 5 years after having a stroke, the team is suffering both on the field and at the gate, and Tal Smith is back here to try and save both. It's kind of funny how we didn't know this article was going to be in SI because just a month ago, we had a guy by the
Yeah.
name of Din Man on as a guest. He's the grandson of Judge Hofheinz and a longtime exec who helped start MLB.com, MLB Network, the MLB app, and more. Had a great talk with him about baseball 50 years ago and what lies ahead for the game. A smart man who obviously had, much like Sidney Sweeney, great genes. So, and you when I said the name Hofheinz, Billy, that meant something to you, correct?
Yeah, I went to University of Houston and they had the Hofheinz Pavilion. And mind you, at that time, I had no idea what that was. I just thought it was a name. Oh, yeah, it's a pavilion. And to think that we met Hofheinz's grandson. I mean, it's amazing how life comes full circle on some of these things.
Yeah, so funny.
What I think is fascinating is just the Astros and the history of ballparks. I mean, the Astrodome was groundbreaking. But then when the Astrodome goes, they build this other stadium, first of all, called Field.
Yeah,
And Enron, gets into some shady stuff and goes bankrupt,
just a bit.
which is hilarious. But also that ballpark has a flagpole in center field, which inside the ballpark, like players could run into the foul pole. So I can't think of another team that has had two such distinctive stadiums in their
And
history.
remember they had that hill when they first opened the
Yep,
ballpark?
yep,
That
yep.
teeny little hill. You're thinking,
That's
what are you doing?
what else is going on this week in baseball? Mark, you got a couple things.
Yeah, well, I really want to talk about Bert Hooton. So, Bert Hooton, he's pitching for the Dodgers now. He has just won his ninth straight game. He beats the Giants 3-1 and the Braves 5-2. And it was a really interesting season for him. So in 1975, he starts off with the Cubs. He's 0-2 with the Cubs. And then in May of that year, he gets traded to the Dodgers. What did he do with the Dodgers? He went 18-7 the rest of the year, had a 2.82 ERA. I mean, his whole career, once he got to the Dodgers, just completely changed. And he was dominant. I mean, in 81 was probably his most achievement. He won a World Series, he made an all-star team, he was the MVP of the National League Championship Series. But that trade to the Dodgers in 75 really revitalized his career. And then he pitched in LA till 84.
Yeah, Happy Hooten. He was a heck of a pitcher for Tommy Lasorda's, and what a trade. I guess that would be a Campanis trade, right? But he was fantastic for the Dodgers. Billy, you got anything?
Sure, I'll give a quick one. The NL East, there was an all-time low of just on the Braves 10-9 with a 5-run ninth. And then the next day's attendance in Atlanta was 1,062 people, but they did get to see the Braves win 2-1. And then I have just one more. Rich Gossage. He chalks up his 8th triumph as well as his 23rd and 24th saves. He is accounted for a remarkable 47% of Chicago's 68 victories. Sounds good to me, but the next year the Sox made him a starter. So he goes 224 innings, throws 15 complete games, has one save. Yep, the White Sox say this guy's not very good, so they trade him to the Pirates the next year. He never starts another game, but did finish his career with 280 more saves and got to the Hall of Fame. Good call there. Good call there, getting right there in that rotation.
Oh, I remember the Goose, man. He was the first reliever I could remember that, man. When he came in, it just felt like that game is over.
Remember the guy? Do you remember the guy he was traded with when they traded him to the Pirates?
No.
The fat tub of goo.
Oh,
Terry
Forster.
Forster. When he was,
Yeah.
remember
Oh,
Fat
yeah,
Tub
I
of Goo
remember
by
too.
David Letterman called
Oh
him
my
that.
God. So mean. A mad stork stirs up his new nest. Ted Hendricks, man, I love this guy. What a player for the Raiders. Acquired from the Packers, he would cement his Hall of Fame career wearing the silver and black. He was 6'7" and a great all-around linebacker, but his forte, Billy, was
Blocking kicks. He blocked 25 kicks during his career, which means field goals, extra points, and punts. That is an NFL record. He actually blocked 7 kicks in the 1974 season with the Packers. It's quite a bit.
Yeah, he said, we were in Baltimore and they were getting ready to punt. I tried to draw the opposing player offside so they'd get a 5-yard penalty, but when one of their players moved and I reached over to touch them, the officials called offsides on me. The penalty against us moved them into field goal range, so they brought in their field goal team, but I blocked it. So yeah, he was sensational at that. Field goals, punts, you name it. He won 4 Super Bowls in his career, Super Bowl 5 with the Colts, and all 3 Super Bowls the Raiders have won. And one other thing that I didn't know about him, Billy, he's known as the Mad Stork his entire NFL career, but he did not like that name.
No, it was given to him at the University of Miami by an assistant at the University of Miami. But his nickname prior to that used to be Twiggy. And you go as Twig, so I'm not sure who gets it, you or him.
Well, I respect my elders, so he can have it.
And wasn't there an actress named Twiggy?
It was a model. She was a very skinny
That's
model.
it, model. That's it.
Yeah. Prior to the Mad Stork coming to Oakland, the Raiders were known as the team that couldn't win the big one, but with Hendricks, they won the big one 3 times. He retired in 1983 after their last Super Bowl win, and 42 years later, they have not won another big one. So we're kind of missing the Hall of Famer Hendricks since he left after the 83 season. College football, no run-of-the-mill start here, Billy. What's going on in college football 50 years ago?
Oh, I'm just going to talk about the school I graduated from. They just started football that year. It was Cal State Fullerton.
Oh,
They went 2-9, and they only lost 70-0 to Southern Miss. But just a few years later, this same Cal State Fullerton would go 12-0, led by Marcus Allen's brother Damon and future Super Bowl champion Mark Collins, plus 6 other future NFL players. Then a few years after that, they disbanded the football program altogether.
what?
Yep, done.
They were just getting good.
They were, man. You go, 12-0, and Damon Allen's there. Who set records in the CFL, who used to be the all-time leading passer in the CFL. He's not now. But, at one point in time, they were a up-and-coming, football powerhouse, obviously. And now they're not even playing football. But they did build a stadium for football.
Did you go to any games there?
No, but I did. I in one of my classes there, I interviewed their star running back, which was it Pringle? Not Ron Pringle. That's the guy I went to school with.
Mike Pringle?
Pringle, and he ended up.
I think
setting
it's Mike
records.
Pringle.
Mike Pringle, thank you. Mike Pringle ended up setting a whole bunch of records in the CFL as well. No, he was a great guy, just a great guy.
Nice.
Yeah, it's unfortunate they decided to get rid of the football team. Same with Long Beach State, because you think nowadays with Southern California being so full of people, it seems like it'd be a market for them to have a football team.
Yeah, but football's an expensive game.
No, true, but if you get the right people, you can make good money off it as well.
Right, it's the biggest moneymaker.
Yes.
More room to run at the top, track and field, and this is kind of interesting because a couple of guys we've talked about this year, Filbert Baye and John Walker, who are dominating in the 1,500 meters, especially at sea level. Now, there's not something I ever thought about that. The guys are better running at sea level or below sea level, who knows? But anyway, others are moving on from that distance and trying something else, like former pop guest Marty LaQuarrie, who said, I don't feel that I will ever in my life run 3:49 for the mile, which is Walker's record, 3:49.4. But I do see the possibility of running 13:13 for the 5,000, which is the current world record in 1975. So guys are basically giving up what their best race is because those other 2 guys, Baye and Walker, are so dominant at that distance that they don't feel like they can compete against them, especially as we are now less than a year away from the 1976 Summer Olympics in Montreal. In October 1st, in fact, is when the runners have to pick what race they will enter. Another former Past Our Prime guest, Frank Shorter, said, if you run to come in second, then you should be sitting on a beach somewhere just getting fat. Now, I think he was talking about me when he was mentioning that, which I think is a little bit rude because I treated him very well, but still, that's the way that these marathon runners think about us fat beachgoers.
But you know,
Yes,
you look
how
back,
rude.
I look at those miles there, and about 5 years ago, I decided to run a mile as fast as I could. I ran 6:52. And I keep
Wow.
thinking, these guys are still 3 minutes ahead of me. They were still, sitting back talking, and I was still running. It's just amazing how fast that is.
Yeah. And 6:52 is fast. That is
Yeah,
fast, man. That's under a 3-hour marathon if you did that for 26 miles.
yeah,
You
that
know?
was my mile time.
Oh, crazy.
We only ran mile and a halves, never miles. My best mile and a half time was about like 9 minutes, give or take a
That's
second
good
here
though,
and there.
So
Mark.
that's six
But
That's
minute
good.
miles. That's really good,
That's
man.
good.
That is a quick pace.
that's because I lost all that weight wrestling. I went from being in no cardio shape to being in great cardio shape after a year of wrestling.
That's still impressive, man. However you did it, that's impressive.
Come down the stretch they come.
All right, we're almost done. Mark, for the record.
For the record, let's do a story about the World Football League because it's not going to be around much longer. There's a team there called the Chicago Winds, which I love that name. It's a great name. Anyway, they got expelled from the league. It's like they were a bad student, and the dean and the board had to expel them. Apparently, two of their investors withdrew their deposits of $175,000 each, and the team was only drawing about 3,400 fans, and it's only home game this season. So the league just said, you know what? It's not worth it. You're out of here.
I mean, think about that. That's Chicago. That's like our third
Yeah.
biggest city in the country. And they couldn't get 3,000 fans to come to a professional football game. It's kind of pathetic. How about this? Retired Jim Otto, 37, center for the Oakland Raiders since the team's founding in 1960. In 15 seasons, Otto, wearing number 00, started 210 consecutive games, a professional record. He will go on to become the Raiders business manager. So just the other day, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 days ago, I'm over at my mom's going through old pictures that she had come across and put into a box for my kids to look at. And there's a picture of me when I am 7 years old with Jim Otto.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was at like one of those
Wow.
fan days or whatever, and he's hovering over me, big man. And yep, Jim
You know
Otto.
what the great thing about Jim Otto is? It's Otto forward or backwards.
Yep. Yep. OTTO.
It's
Automatic.
automatic.
I don't think we have anything in the faces in the crowd
Oh,
this week, which is a first,
no,
right? That is the
no.
first time we have not deemed anything. I don't want to say worthy because these people are all worthy, but we're just going to get right to the last thing, the 19th hole. Mark, you go first.
I go, there's Rick D. Smith from Eureka, Kansas writes, the only pleasant aspect of Tack Small's retirement is that we no longer will have to suffer through the annual prediction that the Dallas Cowboys will win the NFC title and pulverize some helpless AFC opponent in the Super Bowl. Enjoy retirement, Tex, but pick a new team. So obviously a cowboy hater there, Rick.
And you know what the funny thing is? They still pick the Cowboys to win every year.
Even though
50
they haven't
years
won in
later,
30
they're
years.
still picking them.
Yeah.
I just finished that Netflix series. Have you guys seen that? Have you both watched
I
that?
did. Yeah, I did.
Mark, have you seen it yet?
No, I've not seen
Oh,
it yet.
you'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
Billy, you got a 19th hole?
I do. This is just one sport. Yeah, as you all know, I'm always participating in. But this is from RT Law from Coronado, California. He says, of all the sports I've ever participated in, skiing, motorcycle racing, etc., bluefin tuna fishing is by far the most exciting. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Everyone
Oh, yeah.
knows when I'm not around, I'm tuna fishing. No
With your old
question.
man.
Damn right. Damn right. You get in there. Go get me a hams.
Bill and Dad just having some great Festivus time together.
Yes. Yes. You get me that hams and stop talking.
It's Festivus.
I noticed 4 or 5 letters to the editor that basically all said, Brian Oldfield's got a huge ego. I don't find him. They thought he was ugly and full of
Yeah.
himself. They did not like Brian Oldfield. So I don't know. I guess you can't please everyone, I guess. But unless you're Kirkpatrick, he pleases us every time he's with us. Thanks again for being our first 5-time guest on Pop. Who would have guessed that when we started that we'd become so close with Kirkpatrick, one of the great perks thus far of doing this show. So until next week, the Three Stooges are saying goodbye. For Mark and Bill and Mo, Larry, and Curly, I'm Scott, and we are past our prime.
Hey, I'm Shemp. Get that straight.